They say silence can sometimes be louder than words. But when that silence belongs to Johnny Depp, the whole world listens a little closer. Here's a man who has spent his entire life in the center of attention, who has played unforgettable characters, who has lived both as a rebel and as an icon, and who has stolen the hearts of millions of people across the globe. And yet, in the moment when everyone expects him to speak, to defend himself, to set the record straight, he chooses quiet. No big interviews, no long speeches, no endless posts on social media. Just silence. And that silence has become so loud that people everywhere are asking the same thing: Johnny, you stole our hearts, but why are you silent now? If you followed his journey, you already know this isn't just about movies. It isn't just about red carpets, premieres, or the box office. This is about a man who has been through storms so intense that they blurred the line between his life and his art. It's about someone who's fought battles not only on the big screen but in the real world, battles that would break most people. And yet, after all of that, instead of rushing to tell his story, instead of making every headline about his truth, he's pulled away. He's stepped back into the shadows. But is that silence a retreat, or is it his most powerful move yet? Johnny Depp has never been an ordinary actor. His career has been one long refusal to follow the rules. When Hollywood wanted leading men who were polished, safe, and predictable, Johnny gave us characters like Edward Scissorhands, strange, fragile, and unforgettable. When studios wanted a standard action hero, Johnny turned pirates into poetry with Jack Sparrow, a character so quirky and unpredictable that no one could look away. He made his own rules, and audiences loved him for it. He didn't just play characters. He became them. And for many of us, Johnny wasn't just entertaining us on screen. He was showing us that it was okay to be different. That it was okay to be misunderstood. That even the strangest outcast could become the center of the story. But behind the characters, behind the makeup and costumes, there has always been a man who values privacy more than publicity. Even at the height of his fame, he wasn't living on social media, he wasn't opening every door to the press, and he wasn't the kind of star who gave you his whole life in interviews. He gave you his art, and he held the rest close to his chest. That has always been Johnny. So, in a way, this silence that frustrates so many fans is not new. It's who he has always been. He lets the work speak. He lets the roles carry the weight of his soul. But let's be real. Things changed when his personal life exploded onto the front pages. For years, we all watched as Johnny was dragged through trials, scandals, accusations, counter-accusations. His life was no longer his. It became public property. Every detail, every text message, every recording, every private moment was dissected, debated, and judged by millions of strangers. Some supported him. Others condemned him. But no one ignored him. For Johnny, that meant living inside a storm of noise and chaos that never seemed to end. Imagine that for a moment. Imagine your most painful experiences, your lowest points, your darkest secrets being debated by the world like a reality TV show. How would you react? Would you keep talking? Would you keep explaining? Or would you finally reach a point where silence feels safer than any word you could say? That's the crossroads Johnny found himself standing at. And when you think about it, his choice makes sense. Silence isn't weakness, it's survival. It's a way of saying, I don't owe the world every piece of me anymore. And yet, there's more to it than survival. Silence can also be power. When someone like Johnny Depp chooses not to speak, when he doesn't feed the gossip or respond to every rumor, he forces people to lean in closer. The world waits. Fans speculate. The media keeps guessing. And all the while, Johnny remains in control, not because of what he says, but because of what he doesn't say. Silence can be its own statement. A mysterious, defiant one. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Johnny isn't just sitting in silence, doing nothing. He's been busy, just not in the ways that usually grab headlines. He's been painting. He's been making music. He's been traveling quietly, playing small gigs with friends, performing in places where there are no flashing cameras, no overwhelming spotlights, just people and art. In many ways, he's gone back to the roots of what made him fall in love with creativity in the first place. Before Hollywood, before fame, before the world started watching his every move, there was just Johnny with a guitar, or Johnny with a canvas, expressing himself without having to explain himself. That alone should tell us something. Maybe his silence isn't about disappearing. Maybe it's about reconnecting. Maybe he's reminding himself of who he is when he isn't defined by headlines or trials. Maybe the silence is how he's healing. And maybe it's how he's preparing for something bigger. Because let's not forget, there are whispers, rumors, and quiet conversations in the industry that Johnny is far from finished. Some say he's carefully selecting his next roles, projects that will redefine him once again. Others believe he's working on music that will surprise fans. There are even talks of a documentary, something that could finally let us see him in his own light, on his own terms. And this is where Johnny Depp becomes even more fascinating. Because his silence doesn't mean absence. His silence is movement. It's strategy. It's a pause before the next chapter. And if history has taught us anything, it's that Johnny never comes back in the way people expect. He doesn't play by the rules, and that's exactly why people love him. Think about the pattern of his career. Every time Hollywood tried to put him in a box, he broke out of it. In the early days, when people saw him as the handsome young heartthrob from 21 Jump Street, he could have stayed there forever. He could have played the safe roles, cashed in on the image of being the charming leading man, and built a career on romantic dramas and standard Hollywood scripts. But that wasn't Johnny. He walked away from the predictable path and threw himself into roles that made people raise their eyebrows. He became Edward Scissorhands, a gothic, lonely, almost childlike creation who said more with silence than with words. He proved he wasn't interested in being just another pretty face, he wanted to be an artist. And that decision set the tone for the rest of his life. Later, when studios wanted him to stick to one lane, Johnny took risks again. He played offbeat characters, eccentric personalities, strange outsiders. And then came Jack Sparrow, the pirate who wasn't supposed to work. The Disney executives thought audiences would hate him. They said he was acting drunk, slurring, stumbling, turning a blockbuster adventure into a comedy. But Johnny held his ground. He knew exactly what he was doing. And he turned Captain Jack into a legend. Children copied him. Adults quoted him. The world couldn't get enough. What was supposed to be a career-ending gamble became one of the most iconic roles in cinema. That's Johnny's way. He doesn't follow expectations, he shatters them. So when people now look at his silence and say, he's gone, he's fading, he's done, maybe they're forgetting the pattern. Maybe the silence is just his latest twist, his latest unpredictable move. Because if Johnny has taught us anything, it's that he always comes back in a way no one saw coming. But let's go deeper. Silence is rarely empty. In Johnny's case, silence feels deliberate. It feels like he's choosing when and how to engage with the world. For years, his life wasn't his own. His battles were played out for public consumption. Every word he said was dissected. Every look, every gesture was turned into a headline. That kind of scrutiny leaves scars. And it also teaches lessons. Maybe Johnny learned that words can be used against you, twisted, taken out of context. Maybe he realized that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Not react. Not explain. Not justify. Just hold your ground and let the world exhaust itself. There's something undeniably powerful about that. Because silence makes people wonder. It creates mystery. It forces everyone else to fill in the gaps, to speculate, to argue among themselves. And while they do that, Johnny holds the cards. His silence is control. It flips the script. Instead of him being at the mercy of headlines, the headlines are at the mercy of his silence. And that's a kind of quiet rebellion that suits him perfectly. But silence also leaves space. Space for him to return to the things that matter. Space for music, for painting, for art. Space for his children, his close friends, the people who really know him. Away from the flashing lights, he has been living in a different rhythm. He's been spotted at small concerts, laughing with old bandmates, playing guitar with a raw joy that you can't fake. He's been putting colors on canvas, creating paintings that fans now line up to buy. He's been reclaiming the parts of himself that fame tried to steal. And maybe that's the point. Maybe he doesn't want his legacy to be defined by scandal. Maybe he wants it defined by creation. And yet, even in silence, his shadow looms large. Fans across the world still talk about him daily. Social media explodes with old clips, interviews, movie scenes, even courtroom footage turned into endless debates. People can't stop talking about Johnny Depp, even when Johnny himself says nothing at all. That's the mark of someone who has become bigger than the headlines. He doesn't need to chase attention. Attention chases him. What's fascinating is that this silence hasn't killed his career, it's fueled anticipation. Every time a rumor pops up about a new film, fans go wild. When whispers spread about him working on music, people start hunting for details. When someone posts a blurry photo of him at a cafe, it becomes news. That's the kind of magnetism very few stars ever achieve. It's not built on constant exposure. It's built on scarcity. On mystery. On the idea that when he finally does step back into the spotlight, it'll matter. And isn't that what he's always done? Johnny has never flooded the world with himself. He's been selective. He's been deliberate. He has chosen moments that last instead of noise that fades. And right now, his silence is shaping the stage for whatever comes next. Some say he's waiting for the right project, something that will remind everyone why they fell in love with him in the first place. Others believe he's tired of Hollywood's games, that he's building a new chapter in Europe, focusing on art, music, and a slower life. Maybe both are true. Maybe Johnny doesn't want to play by Hollywood's rules anymore. Maybe he's writing his own. But here's what we can't forget. Johnny Depp has always been underestimated. From the moment he walked away from television heartthrob status, people said he was throwing away his career. From the moment he played Captain Jack the way he did, people said he was sabotaging a blockbuster. From the moment his personal life exploded, people said he was finished. And every single time, he proved them wrong. So, when we look at this silence, maybe we shouldn't see it as the end. Maybe we should see it as the setup. The pause before the storm. The quiet inhale before the explosion. Because Johnny's story has never been about what people expect. It's been about what they don't. And silence may be the most unexpected move of all. Fans feel conflicted, and that's understandable. Some say his silence makes him stronger, that it shows dignity, that it proves he won't dance for the cameras anymore. Others say it's frustrating, that they want to hear from him, that they miss his voice. Both feelings are real. Both come from love. Because Johnny Depp has never been just an actor to people. He's been a symbol. A companion. Someone who made people feel less alone through characters who were outsiders, dreamers, rebels, misfits. That bond doesn't disappear. That's why his silence feels so heavy. But maybe that's exactly why he's keeping it. Because silence makes people reflect. It makes them miss you. It makes them realize what you gave them. And when he does come back, because he will, it'll mean more. It'll be louder. It'll be unforgettable. Johnny Depp's silence is not the absence of a story. It is the story. And in many ways, it's the most Johnny Depp thing he's ever done. Think about it, when he first played Captain Jack Sparrow, Disney didn't even understand what he was doing. Executives thought he was ruining the movie. But Johnny knew exactly what he was creating. He trusted his instincts. And that gamble turned into one of the most iconic characters of all time. That's Johnny. He doesn't follow the crowd. He makes the crowd follow him. So why should his silence be any different? Maybe he knows that by saying nothing now, he's building something bigger for later. Of course, fans feel torn. Some admire this quiet strength. They see it as resilience, as proof that Johnny doesn't need to play the game anymore. They feel proud that he's choosing peace over chaos. To them, his silence isn't a void, it's a choice. They look at him and think, here's a man who has given so much of himself to the public for decades, who has been ripped apart by tabloids and judged by millions, and now he's finally drawing the line. These fans respect that. They see dignity in the quiet. They see it as a refusal to let the media or the critics dictate his life anymore. They see it as Johnny reclaiming his identity on his own terms. And in a world where celebrities often feel pressured to explain every move, his choice to remain silent feels refreshing, even revolutionary. But on the other side, there's a very different emotion. Frustration. Disappointment. A sense of being left behind. These are the fans who have followed him through every chapter, who have defended him in conversations, who have argued with strangers online, who have stood in his corner during the most difficult years of his career. They want to hear his voice because, for them, silence feels like absence. They want reassurance, not just that he's okay, but that he still feels connected to them. They long for that human touch, that personal acknowledgement, the feeling that the man they've supported for so long hasn't disappeared behind a wall of quiet. When you spend years watching someone's movies, memorizing their interviews, listening to their music, it's easy to feel a bond that goes deeper than entertainment. And when that bond isn't fed with new words, new glimpses, new moments, it can feel like distance, like something has been broken. And yet, both sides are understandable. Johnny Depp isn't just a name on a screen, he's someone people grew up with, someone who shaped their memories. For some, he was the oddball outsider who made them feel less alone. For others, he was the adventurous pirate who reminded them to dream. His characters, his music, his interviews, they became part of people's lives. So when silence takes their place, fans interpret it through the lens of their own emotions. For some, it's strength. For others, it's loss. But either way, it shows just how deeply he matters. Silence only feels this heavy when someone has already given you so much. And maybe that's the paradox, Johnny's silence is frustrating because of how much he means, but it's also powerful for the exact same reason. But maybe that's the lesson here. Maybe Johnny is reminding all of us that he doesn't belong to the headlines. He doesn't belong to gossip. He doesn't even belong to us, the fans. He belongs to himself. And after everything he's been through, maybe that's the only truth that matters right now. So here we are, waiting. Watching. Wondering when the silence will break, and how. Will it be with a new movie? A song? A painting? Or maybe just a quiet moment where he finally sits down and speaks in his own words? No one knows. And that's what makes it so compelling. Johnny Depp has stolen hearts for decades. But this time, he's stolen attention in a different way. Not with a performance, not with an interview, but with silence. And maybe that silence is saying more than words ever could. So, what do you think? Does his silence make you respect him even more? Or does it leave you frustrated as a fan, wishing he'd finally open up? Because the story of Johnny Depp isn't over, it's just waiting for its next chapter. And something tells me, when he's ready to speak again, the world will stop to listen.